Hey Blade Gang! Especially you Pikal Blade Gang fans. Got something special for you today. I thought it was interesting. Saw it on White Mountain Knives. Thank you, Justin, for speeding it along to my tabletop. And don't forget to buy your stuff at White Mountain Knives. And if you use my discount code OG-Blade, I believe it's not a dash, OG Blade, all one word, you'll get 10% off. I know you can get that discount elsewhere, but I would appreciate it if you use my discount code. Helps me out a little bit. So, what's new from Kubey? And I tipped you off, and you saw the thumbnail. Well, they don't give you the name on their label. They just give you stock numbers and the materials, model number that is, and so forth. And yes, that it's made in China by kubeyknife.com. So Kubey Knife is their lower end, more budgety end, and KB knives. If you see that, that's going to be their stuff that's running a couple $100 or more. So what do we got? Kubey's usually pretty simple with these things. They just give you this in a bag, in a box, and that is about it. So guess they save money that way. Kubey used to send me knives. Would be nice if they sent me knives for review, but this is my own purchase, and it wasn't a whole lot. So here we are. This is the Wave Crest. Interesting looking knife. There's the peak of the waves, right? Right there, I would say. And the full name is Wave Crest Liner Lock Pikal Folding Knife. Black G10 handle, 3.78 inch satin, 14C28 and blade. And the maker, I should say the designer, pardon me, is Yuze Zhong. Yuze Zhong. There's some of the stats, since I'm not putting them on the screen, but I will measure it up with my own rulers and such before we're done. Interesting that they call this a Pikal knife. And if you know anything about Pikal knives, and if you're acquainted with Ed Calderon and the Libre fighting methods and Ed Calderon's manifesto, etc., and you see some of the knives that are made to fit the techniques of that style, this really ain't it. Where this comes in very nicely is that you do have a very usable knife in the downward edge out position, but there is no edge in. So although we can drop things, getting off on a rant and I'm dropping things. So yeah, I mean, it's useful in this position, okay? So long as you don't try to also rip with it, because you don't have much here that's going to serve you in that technique, okay? It is, however, a real interesting trailing point knife. I wouldn't call it a Pikal knife. So the designer may see this as a Pikal knife, and for jabbing and that sort of thing, it's good. But the other thing I'd caution anybody against is jabbing and putting a whole lot of downward force on a knife that could very well fold on you. It's got a thick liner, but it is a liner lock, and it is subject to accidental closures in rough situations. But I do like the fact that they gave us a nice relief here on the show side, and that this stands high, so very easy to close it. If you're EDCing this guy, it's real nice because it's a slicer. You might be able to get some point work in, although you're going to have to raise that up to probably close to 90 degrees, like 80 degrees at least, to engage that point, because the point's trailing away, all right? And, you know, as far as the defensive sticker goes, could serve the purpose in close here. The thing about this is the whole concept I keep explaining of zone of maximum pressure. Now listen, I'm not saying that you give this knife to somebody and they can't hurt someone with it, or you. Definitely can. But as a blade trails away from the outward motion, then you have less push or less pressure on the cutting edge because it's trailing away from the movement, right? If that's your cut, it's trailing away, so you're lightening the pressure towards the end. Now, Michael Janich points this out in his knives like the Ojimbo that are based on a Wharncliffe, reverse tanto, if you want to call it that, where the point is way down here because you've got a straight edge and it drops here. This is still a real interesting knife. Look at this kind of knobby stuff they gave us here. That kind of pushes into the palm in this direction, but also gives you a purchase for your thumb if you want to go way back here or up here, or use the jimping, which is very effective jimping, by the way. But yeah, you got it flat here because when you close it, you don't want an edge there in your pocket, or maybe do you? Really nice action, smooth on bearings, drop shut. Flipper tab is fairly prominent and is the only way to open it unless you do that, which is obviously an alternative way. Let's get the ruler out before I get too far off course here. So 8.5 inches, maybe 8.6 inches with a blade, and you know, it's 3.85, let's say, depending upon how you measure it. Got a cutting edge of over 3 3/4. So long knife and fairly light. We'll get to that in a moment. Let's get the calipers out. So millimeters for blade thickness, blade stock, 3.5. Handle thickness, 13.8. Inches, 0.13, 0.53. Really not too thick of a handle. It's comfortable in the hand, really is. And again, I'm seeing more EDC use for this. And of course, you know, you can have a wicked looking knife at the same time. Grams. 120 grams, we'll call that. Ounces, only 4.2. 4.2. So fairly light for the size. 4.2, well, so it's a little less than your ideal ounce per inch, if that is an ideal. Now here's another Pikal knife that actually is, that they call the Rogue Pikal knife. It's a Muzi design, I believe. And this one I did a review on some time back. This is set up more for your point down, meaning down, right? Edge in setup. Although I feel they sickled the point a little bit too much, kind of like the Shielden scythe, and that's a nice knife, and I have a lot of nothing but respect for DC blades for designing it. And everybody's got a different technique. If you are studying a martial defensive method, then you may want the point down more, because you may shorten the stroke on the use of that Pikal, you know, and hook and come down. But if you are more the school of thought, perhaps like Ed Calderon's manifesto, going forward first, notice that, and I got my handy dandy mil-spec foam here. We'll see if this helps us out. Now let's put the bright side forward so you can see. So as this goes forward first, you notice it's not ideal. It's still going to go in, but notice how it's starting to force itself down a little bit, right? Now, consequently, or I should say, inversely, whatever, I'm sorry, losing words here. We have this shape of blade where the point is raised a little bit more. You notice that it can go in more easily than this guy, with everything else being equal, such as the grip on your hand, you know, if it's coming in this way, that point, again, you can see is a little bit down. Really, if you put your finger through the ring, notice how it changes the orientation a little more. So that point is even a little more down. I was holding it before this way, which actually raises the point a bit. So, you know, all of that is in the technique. And there's a lot of variables when it comes to this stuff. A lot of variables in, you know, bushcraft with a knife. And I don't do much of that, if any. Now, this is a nice slicer. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty nice slicer. How would it do on paper? I don't know. Do I have any to spare here? Got a decimated piece of paper here. Maybe I've got an edge I can use. So they gave us a nice edge, at least on that stroke. Yeah, it's a slicey edge. So again, that tells me that we've got really more of an EDC knife with kind of a backup as an edge down, point forward knife, right? Because it pretty much, hard to tell if it lines up, pretty much lines up with the center line of the handle, see? But it's an S shape, isn't it? It's got a whole thing going on here where it's like almost like a yin and a yang. Very interesting. And I can see that could be an Asian design kind of a thing. Now I've got the Rev that I think was manufactured by Shieldon for DC knives. And it is a collaboration between Michael Jarvis and Justin Carvin and Chris, I keep saying Harrison, Chris Harrison, sorry Chris, for my previous botches of your name, but not today, I did it right. This is the Rev, and as a Pikal knife goes, I would rather have something like this, quite frankly, because it's straight line, it's kind of a classic Wharncliffe that drops evenly from the base of the blade all the way to the tip, and therefore also gives you some real good utility, you know? And there again is a usable point, even like slightly off of level, you can use that point. You see? You see what I say? See? Now you can use that point, right? Don't have to go all the way up here. So I'm kind of liking this concept for a Pikal knife because you can definitely use that. And there's your straight ahead point. Straight ahead point. That baby's going to go right in. See? Then it's going to come down and tear. Anyway, sorry for all the martial inclusion. But that's kind of my background. And then I look at a lot of these things. When I see this, I see a defensive kind of a knife, you know. But this is the Wave Crest. And it's an interesting knife. You can pick them up for, I think, around 60, 70 bucks, depending upon handle variation. And they do have several different variations. Let's see if we can show them to you here. Here they all are. So we've got the black with the stonewash, we've got the turquoise blue, we've got the Ultim, and we've got, what is that one? That is a brown micarta, so you can get it in micarta as well. And there's your price, 80 bucks, but that's MSRP. Manufacturer suggested retail, you'll never pay that. They're already going to be discounted down at White Mountain, and if you use my discount code, you get another 10% off. So, you know, I think you're going to end up around 60 bucks, something like that. So not bad. Good materials. We do have plenty of weight relieving on the inside. I'm not going to get my flashlight out to prove it, but we've got a series of holes there. So it's an easy knife to carry. Somebody mentioned in the short that I put up on Instagram that the clip could be kind of uncomfortable, and I agree that it could be because they raise that up pretty high. Easy in and out of the pocket to a degree, unless you squeeze on that clip too hard, and then you're compressing it down. It is not switchable to the left side, so I needed to mention that. Let me know what you think about the Wave Crest by Kubey. Right about now, click on my logo, and you'll be directed to where you can subscribe to my channel. I really hope you do, so you keep coming back and you get notified when there's new vids out there. Be well, take care, stay safe.